After my wife vanished in 1985, my life ended without a funeral. For years I searched, begged, and prayed, but she was gone, leaving nothing but an empty bed and my broken heart. I thought she was dead. Until last month, when I saw her photo smiling in a family magazine, alive, older, holding a child. The world stopped. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but what I discovered after that broke whatever was left of me. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from, and please subscribe so my stories can reach more people. In 1985, my wife vanished without a word. One night she slept beside me, warm and alive, and by morning, her side of the bed was cold like she never existed. No note on the table, no clothes missing, no signs of a struggle, just an empty space that used to breathe with her voice. I looked for her everywhere I walked the streets until my legs shook. I showed photos to strangers who didn't care. I begged the police to dig deeper, but they only filled reports and shrugged like my pain was routine. Days turned into months, months into years. Every morning I woke expecting her key in the door, her footsteps on the floor, her soft laugh in the kitchen. But silence was all I got. The house grew smaller each year, shrinking around the empty chair she used to sit in. I kept her things the same, untouched, waiting like a fool who believed love couldn't rot. Friends told me to move on, but I couldn't move anywhere I was trapped in the moment she disappeared. My hands aged, my hair thinned, but her face stayed young in my mind. The world said she was gone, dead, lost, taken. But my heart didn't know how to bury someone who left without goodbye. I checked hospitals, shelters, even morgues. I listened for her name in crowds. Every shadow on the street pulled my eyes in hope. Every woman with her shaped hair made me stop breathing. No one understood how it felt to search for a ghost you weren't sure existed. My life became a long hallway with no door. At the end I slept in small pieces, waking to nightmares where she screamed for me from somewhere I couldn't reach. I aged alone in a house that used to be full. And worst of all, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't enough. I thought I failed her. I thought she ran because life with me wasn't worth staying for. That guilt dug deeper than any grave. Years passed, seasons changed, people forgot her name. But I didn't. I couldn't. I lived like a man holding a photograph that kept fading no matter how tight I held it. And still, I searched. I searched until searching became the only thing I knew how to do. Time became my prison after she vanished. Every day felt the same, heavy and slow, like dragging chains behind me. I woke up to the same empty side of the bed, the same cold pillow, the same quiet house that used to hold her voice. I stopped opening the curtains because sunlight only reminded me how long she had been gone. I aged faster without her. My hair turned gray. My hands stiffened and my back bent, but the memory of her face never changed. She stayed young in my mind while I grew old, searching for her. Nights were the worst. I would lie awake, listening to the silence that used to be filled with her breathing. Some nights I heard her laugh in my dreams, soft and warm, only to wake and find my room cold again. I never remarried. People asked why I couldn't move on, why I held on to someone who left without a trace. They didn't understand that her absence became part of my bones. Letting go felt like killing her twice. The police called it a clean disappearance, as if she was a stain wiped off the world. They gave me sympathy for a week, then they told me to accept reality. But reality without answers is torture. I lived in half darkness, half hope, never knowing which side was killing me faster. I kept every photo of her, every letter, every small thing she touched. I kept the dress she wore on our last anniversary hanging in the closet, untouched. When I opened that closet, her smell was gone, but the memory stayed like a bruise that never healed. I walked through old places she loved, hoping she might walk past me by mistake. I sat in the park alone, staring at couples who held hands and laughed, wondering how it felt to have a life that didn't collapse overnight. I watched families grow while mine stayed frozen in 1985. People forgot her name. People forgot my story. But I lived with it every single day. Time didn't heal me. It only deepened the hole she left behind. Her voice echoed in my sleep, calling my name, then fading when I reached out. Every morning, I woke with tears on my pillow, ashamed of how broken I still was. Time didn't free me. It held me hostage, making me carry memories that cut deeper the older I became. I learned to live with her ghost, not because I wanted to, but because I had no choice. Last month, everything inside me stopped. I was sitting in my chair, flipping through an old family magazine someone left at the community center. I wasn't even paying attention at first. I was just turning pages to kill the quiet. Then my fingers froze. My heart slammed against my chest so hard I thought it would tear. Because there she was. My wife. The woman who vanished in 1985. Staring back at me from a photo like she had never disappeared at all. Her smile was the same shape I remembered, just older, softer, practiced. She stood beside a tall man with kind eyes and a teenage boy who looked nothing like me. They looked like a perfect family, dressed in matching colors, standing in front of a big, bright house with clean windows and a happy porch. And under that picture were the words that punched the breath out of me. Happy anniversary to the Harrisons. 20 years strong. 20 years. 20 years of a life she built while I sat alone waiting for a ghost. 20 years of smiles while I spent decades thinking she was dead, kidnapped, lost, destroyed. I couldn't believe it. I thought my eyes were lying. I rubbed the page again and again, but the image didn't go away. Her face didn't vanish. Her smile didn't fade. She was alive. Not only alive, she was happy. She was safe. She was loved. All the things I begged the world to give her while I drowned in grief. My hands trembled so hard I almost tore the page. My throat tightened. I felt anger and love fight inside me, both sharp enough to cut. I remembered sitting alone in the dark, wondering if she was cold somewhere, hurt somewhere, buried somewhere. And the whole time she was standing in sunshine, holding someone else's hand. I needed to breathe, but air refused to come. The magazine felt heavier than any weight I had ever carried. It felt like the world had taken a shovel and hit me with it again and again. My chest burned, my eyes watered, my skin shook. I wasn't prepared for this truth. I thought she was hurt. I thought she needed me, but she didn't vanish. She escaped. She didn't disappear. She replaced me. All those years I spent searching for her were years she spent living like I never existed. I stared at her face for so long, the letters on the page blurred. I didn't know if I wanted to scream, or cry, or burn the magazine, or hold it like gold. My mind replayed every moment we had, every memory I clung to. Every night I stayed awake praying she was alive. And all along she was living a new life, smiling with a new name, standing beside a new man, raising a child that could have been ours. I felt something in me crack, not loudly, but slow, like old wood splitting in the cold. I didn't know which hurt more, losing her in 1985 or finding her like this now. The photo started to feel like a confession, like she was looking at me through the page saying, I chose this. I chose them. I chose a life without you. I held that magazine against my chest like it might disappear if I let go. But it didn't disappear. It stayed, stubborn and real, just like the truth. My wife wasn't missing. She wasn't dead. She just wanted a life that didn't include me. And the moment I realized that, my world collapsed all over again. Harder than the first time, because now the pain had a face, a name, a home, and a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. Her new name hit me harder than the photo. Mrs. Harrison. A name that erased mine completely. A name she chose while I was growing old alone, searching for a woman who was building a new home. Without looking back, I kept staring at that page, tracing the lines of her face, the way her hand rested on her new husband's arm, the way she leaned into him like she used to lean into me before everything fell apart. It felt like someone reached inside my chest and twisted everything tight. She didn't just leave. She replaced every piece of her old life, replaced our memories, replaced our home, replaced me. I used to blame myself for her disappearance, thinking I drove her away with my flaws, my mistakes, my failures. But looking at that photo, I saw something worse. She left because she wanted a life where I didn't exist. She chose comfort over truth. She chose a new family over the man who spent half his life searching for her shadow. I kept remembering all the nights I cried into my hands, begging the world to give me a sign she was alive. And she was alive, just living a life I wasn't welcome in. I thought about the years I wasted walking through cold streets, showing strangers her picture, begging them to remember her face. She wasn't missing. She wasn't lost. She wasn't stolen. She walked out of our life as if closing a door behind her and never turned around. I felt foolish, angry, broken, and empty all at once. I wanted answers, but answers don't mean much when the truth is already tearing you apart. My mind played every memory in reverse. The wedding, the laughter, the meals, the small touches, the promises whispered in the dark. All of it felt fake suddenly, like a story I had told myself to survive. Meanwhile, she was out there growing older with someone else, building 20 years of new memories while I held on to the ones she abandoned. I wondered if she ever thought of me, even once. If she ever paused during a birthday or anniversary or family trip and felt something pull at her heart. Or if she buried those memories the same way she left our life, clean, quick, final. I realized something painful. She didn't vanish to escape danger. She vanished to escape me. That truth sat on my chest like a heavy stone, the kind of weight that doesn't let you breathe. I kept staring at the boy in the photo, a teenager now. Her son, not mine. She built the family we always dreamed of, just not with me. It felt cruel in a way words can't explain. Cruel because I spent years imagining her hurt, imagining her scared, imagining her needing me. Cruel because I mourned her like a widow while she celebrated anniversaries. Cruel because I loved her enough to search until I was old, while she loved someone else enough to hide from the life we shared. Every tear I shed suddenly felt wasted. Every prayer felt foolish. Every day of grief felt like a punishment for a crime I never committed. She didn't vanish without a trace. She erased every trace on purpose. She erased our life so well, even I believed she might be dead. And the hardest part was knowing she never came back, not once, not even to check if I survived. She moved on. She built a world. She grew older with someone else's hand in hers, and the man in the photo got the life that was supposed to be mine. That realization didn't just hurt. It destroyed whatever was left of the man I used to be. I couldn't sit still after seeing that photo. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, and my chest felt tight, like someone was pressing down on it. I read the address printed under the picture again and again until the letters blurred. Part of me wanted to tear the page apart and pretend I never saw it. But another part, the part that spent decades searching, stood up and said, "Go." So I went. I traveled across towns with nothing but that magazine folded in my pocket like a wound I couldn't close. Every mile felt heavier. Every hour felt like I was walking toward a truth sharp enough to cut me open. I reached the street where she lived, a clean, bright place filled with families who looked whole and safe. I looked nothing like them. I looked like a ghost, dragging years of pain behind me. But I kept walking. I found her house easily. Big windows, flower pots, a door painted soft blue. The kind of house she once dreamed of having with me. My feet froze on the walkway. My breath shook. I told myself to turn back, but my body moved without permission. I raised my hand and knocked. One soft sound, but it felt like thunder inside my chest. The door opened, and there she was. Older, lines on her face, hair streaked with gray, but still the same woman I lost in 1985. Her eyes met mine, and I watched the color drain from her face. Her smile fell apart. Her hand slipped from the doorknob like she had seen something impossible. My heart cracked again in the same place it cracked decades ago. She didn't say my name. She didn't move toward me. She just stared at me the way people stare at something they buried and hoped would stay gone. Her husband stepped behind her, confused, standing tall, protective, unaware that the man at his door once shared a life with the woman beside him. He looked between us, trying to understand why she suddenly couldn't breathe. She backed up a step. Her hand covered her mouth. Her eyes filled with something sharp. Not love, Not anger. Fear. Fear of me. Fear of the past she thought she escaped. Fear of the man she left behind like debris from an old life. I felt something inside me break again. She had a wedding ring on her finger. Not the one I gave her. A different one. A new one. A life rebuilt without the ashes of the one she burned, and seeing that ring was worse than seeing her face. It was the final proof that she didn't disappear to survive. She disappeared to start over. Her husband asked who I was. He asked why she looked like she was staring at a ghost. And she couldn't answer him. Because I wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The man she left in 1985 was supposed to fade, to weaken, to die alone somewhere far from the truth she built here. But there I was, standing on her porch, alive, aged, trembling, carrying decades of pain in my eyes. I didn't speak. My throat wouldn't let me. I just looked at her and waited for her to say something, anything, that could stitch even a small part of my life back together. But she stayed frozen, unable to face the man she abandoned in the dark. The confrontation wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, it was quiet, cold, cruel. It was the kind of silence that tells the truth without a single word. And standing on that doorstep, I realized she wasn't shocked to see me alive. She was shocked the past had found her new life and knocked on her door. She finally whispered the truth, not with courage, but with the same fear that lived in her eyes the moment she opened the door. Her lips trembled, her voice barely formed the words, but I heard them clearly. She said she thought I died in the fire. A fire I survived. A fire she never came back to check. A fire that destroyed our home but not my body. I stood there with the weight of that sentence pressing down on my chest. She believed I was dead, she said, but the way her eyes flickered told me another story. She believed it because it made her new life easier. She didn't search for me. She didn't ask questions. She didn't wait for news. She ran from the ruins and never looked back. She buried me without a grave, without a body, without a last goodbye. She let the world think I burned, and she accepted that lie like it was a gift. Hearing her say it felt like someone reached into my past and snapped it in half. I remembered the fire clearly. The smoke, the heat, the way the floor cracked beneath my feet, the pain in my lungs as I crawled toward the door. I remembered waking in the hospital with burns on my arms, asking for her, begging the nurses to find her. They searched for her for weeks. They said she never checked in, never called, never appeared anywhere. I thought something terrible happened to her. I thought she was kidnapped, hurt, lost, dead. But she wasn't any of those things. She made a choice. She left the burned remains of our life and built a new one before the ashes cooled. I wondered how many nights she sat in this warm home with her new husband and her new son, telling herself I was gone so she wouldn't feel guilty for the life she stole from the ruins. I wondered if she ever imagined I might still be breathing somewhere, waiting for her to return, refusing to believe she would just disappear. I told her I survived. I watched the shock ripple through her whole body like she had been hit by something she never expected to face. Her husband stared at me, confused, trying to fit this stranger into his perfect family picture. He had no idea his wife had a life before him that she buried deeper than any grave. I could see the questions forming in his eyes, questions she didn't want to answer, questions she hoped would never find their way to her doorstep. She said she believed the fire killed me. She said she didn't want to face the ruins. She said she couldn't bear the memories. But all her words sounded like fragile excuses falling apart before they even left her mouth. The truth was simple and cruel. She chose the easier life. She chose to erase the man who would have died for her. She chose to leave the pieces of our burnt home behind and walk into a cleaner world, untouched by smoke and pain. I waited years for a sign she was alive. She waited days before building a new life. That was the difference between us. I fought the fire. She used it as an exit. She looked at me with eyes filled with regret, not the kind that grows from love, but the kind that grows from fear of consequences. Her son came to the doorway, curious, unaware, innocent. He asked her something softly, and she told him to go inside. He obeyed, unaware that the man standing outside once dreamed of holding a child with the woman who now called someone else's child her own. She whispered that she never meant to hurt me. But people who vanish without a trace never mean the damage they cause. They just choose themselves and leave the wreckage for others to crawl out of. I stood there taking in every word, every excuse, every tear. And none of it gave me back the life I lost. None of it rebuilt the years I spent searching for someone who wasn't lost, just gone. The truth she finally spoke didn't heal me. It only confirmed what the photo already told me. She didn't vanish from the world. She vanished from me, on purpose. I walked away from that doorstep with more questions than answers, and every one of them cut deeper than the truth she confessed. I kept asking myself what I did wrong, what part of our life pushed her to erase me so completely. Was it fear? Was she scared after the fire, scared of rebuilding with a man covered in scars and memories? Or was it shame, the kind that grows when you look at the ruins of your life and decide you don't want to live in the ashes anymore? Maybe she looked at the burned house, smelled the smoke in her hair, felt the heat on her skin, and chose to run instead of turning back to see if I survived. That thought stayed with me like a knife pressed to my ribs. Maybe she didn't want to face what we lost. Maybe she didn't want to carry the weight of rebuilding with someone who reminded her of everything she wanted to forget. But another question hurt even worse. What if love simply died in her? Love doesn't always go out with a scream. Sometimes it fades quietly, the way a candle flickers out when the room gets too cold. Maybe she looked at our life and felt nothing left worth saving. The thought made my stomach twist. She told me she couldn't face the ruins. But whose ruins? Hers or ours? She said she couldn't bear my memory. But memories only hurt when the heart doesn't want them. I spent years guarding her memory like a treasure, while she spent years burying it like garbage. She left without saying goodbye. But how long did she carry my face in her mind before letting it fade? A month? A year? Or did she forget me faster than I ever imagined? I wanted to ask her why she never came to find me, why she never checked the hospitals, why she never called the police, why she let the world think I died while she built a quiet, comfortable life far away from the man who once held her when she cried, but those questions stayed trapped in my throat. I saw the answers in her eyes anyway. She said she was protecting me from pain, but all her protection was for herself. She didn't want to rebuild a burned life. She wanted a fresh one. And she took it. She walked straight into a new future, leaving me behind like a ghost that didn't know it was dead. I wondered if she ever sat awake at night wondering if I survived, if she ever reached for a phone and stopped herself, if she ever felt the past tugging at her heart the way I felt it every single day. I doubt it. Her tears at the door didn't come from love. They came from the past, catching up to her doorstep. There was no space in her new world for the man she used to love. I realized she built her lies like a wall, strong enough to hide behind, tall enough to keep me out, wide enough to protect the life she chose. And when she finally spoke, every word felt like she was locking that wall from the inside. The hardest part was knowing I would never get the truth I deserved. She couldn't tell me why she left, because no reason could fix the wound. She couldn't tell me she loved me once, because it wouldn't matter anymore. She couldn't explain how she walked away from our life, because explanations don't heal decades of emptiness. The questions sat heavy inside me, unanswered and unanswerable. I left her standing in her doorway with her hand shaking at her chest, her husband confused beside her, and her son watching from behind the curtain. None of them knew the life I lived after she vanished. None of them knew the nights I spent searching for her shadow. She tried to speak again, but the words collapsed before they reached me. I didn't want her answers anymore. I didn't want her explanations or her guilt. I wanted the life she took from me, and that could never be returned. I walked away carrying the same questions I walked in with. But now the truth sat beside them, cold and cruel. She didn't disappear because something happened to her. She disappeared because something changed in her. Something she never wanted to tell me. Something she left unanswered because deep down, she knew the answers would break me more than her silence ever did. I stood on her porch with the weight of my whole life pressing on my back. The magazine photo was folded in my pocket, the same photo that ripped open wounds I thought had scarred over. I took it out slowly, smoothing the crease with my thumb, staring at the smile she gave another man, the smile she never gave back to me. I handed it to her without a word. She held it like it burned, her hands shaking, her eyes filling with tears that came too late to matter. I watched her look at the picture the way I looked at it the first time, with shock, with fear, with the heavy truth that nothing could go back to the way it was. She tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat like they were afraid to come out. I didn't want to hear them anymore. Words can't fix a grave someone dug on purpose. Words can't rebuild a life someone chose to abandon. Words can't fill decades of silence with meaning. I told her something simple, something small, something that felt like the last thread between us snapping in my hands. I told her I only wanted to see if she was real, because for so long she lived in my mind like a ghost, half memory, half pain. And now that I saw her standing there, alive, older, safe, loved, I realized the ghost version of her hurt less than the real one. The real her was a stranger wearing a face I knew too well. The real her was a woman who chose a world without me. I felt my voice tremble, my knees weaken, my chest tighten. But I kept standing because this was the last moment I would ever give her. Her tears fell harder. Her husband tried to speak, but I didn't look at him. He wasn't the reason my life cracked open. He just filled the space she cleared. I didn't blame him. I didn't care about him. My eyes stayed on her, on the woman who promised forever and vanished before sunrise. She reached out, maybe to touch me, maybe to hold on to something she let die decades ago, but I stepped back. I couldn't let her hand touch me again. Not after what that touch cost me. Not after the years I spent alone in a house filled with her memory while she raised a child in a home that never knew my name. She whispered my name, the same name she once said with love, now dripping with guilt and fear. It didn't move me. It didn't warm anything inside me. It felt like a reminder of the life I wasted waiting for her return. I turned away before she could say anything else. I didn't want her to twist history again. I didn't want her to use regret as a rope to pull me back into a story she walked away from. My legs felt heavy, but they moved. I walked off her porch, down her bright, clean path, past the flowers she watered, past the house she filled with new memories, past everything that proved she chose someone else's life over mine. Behind me, I heard her cry out, a sound full of loss. But it wasn't my loss. It was hers. She lost the chance to tell the truth sooner. She lost the chance to be honest. She lost the chance to face the man who waited for her, even when the world told him to give up. Her tears didn't belong to me anymore. They belonged to the life she built on top of my grief. I kept walking. I didn't look back. If I did, I might break again, and I didn't have anything left that could survive another crack. My heart ached in a slow, deep way, like something being pulled from me piece by piece. But there was also relief. A sad, quiet relief. I finally knew the truth. The years of wondering, searching, suffering were over. She wasn't missing. She wasn't dead. She wasn't stolen. She just left. And now I was leaving too. For the first time, I wasn't walking toward her. I was walking away, leaving the past on her doorstep, leaving the truth in her hands, leaving the final goodbye in the air behind me. I didn't say farewell out loud. I didn't need to. My back turned, my steps moving forward, my silence. That was the farewell. The kind that ends everything without leaving a single piece to pick up. That night, after I walked away from her house, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my chest tightened when I answered. It was her husband. His voice was steady, but underneath it I could hear confusion, fear, and something darker. The beginning of doubt. He told me she hadn't spoken a single word since I left, not one. She was sitting on the floor, shaking, staring at the magazine photo like it was a mirror showing her all the things she buried. He asked who I was. He asked why she looked at me like she had seen a ghost. I felt a bitter twist inside me. something halfway between sadness and satisfaction. I told him the truth in the simplest words I could manage. Just someone she forgot to bury. Silence filled the line after that. Not a normal silence. A heavy silence, thick with realization. A silence of a man who suddenly understood that his wife lived an entire life before him, a life she never confessed, a life she ran from. I could almost feel his heart drop, the same way mine did when I saw her in that magazine. He whispered my name again, like he was trying to put the pieces together, but I didn't give him more. I didn't owe him anything. I didn't owe her anything either. So I hung up. The next morning, I expected the world to feel normal again, empty and tired. But something strange happened. I felt lighter. Not healed, not happy, but lighter. Like someone had finally removed a weight that sat on my chest for almost 40 years. The truth hurt, but it set something free inside me. I wasn't trapped anymore in the mystery of her disappearance. The questions that tormented me had been replaced with answers, painful ones, but answers all the same. I walked to the kitchen, made tea, and sat by the window. For the first time, I didn't stare at the door, hoping she might walk through it. The hope died yesterday on her porch, quietly, the same way she left in 1985. Later that day, my neighbor knocked. He said someone came by asking about me. A man, worried, confused. I didn't have to guess who. Her husband. I imagined him driving across town, searching for the truth his wife refused to give him. He wanted me to explain her past, her disappearance, her lies, but her past wasn't my burden anymore. He married a woman who walked away from a life without courage. He chose her without knowing what she carried, and now he had to face the truth she tried so hard to bury. Just like I did. Only difference? I didn't have a wife to protect. I didn't have a lie to defend. I spent the next days quietly, watching the sun rise and set, like the world didn't even know my heart had been torn open again. But pain is quieter when you've lived with it long enough. Some nights I lay awake replaying her face at the door, the shock, the fear, the guilt. Not once did I see love. Not once did I see the woman I waited for. That hurt more than anything. Knowing she had moved on so completely that the sight of me felt like a threat, not a memory. People always talk about closure like it's a gift, like it fixes things. They don't tell you closure can hurt worse than the mystery. Knowing why she left didn't heal me. Knowing she built a new life didn't comfort me. Knowing she thought I died didn't soften anything. Closure didn't bring peace, it brought truth. And truth is heavy. Truth doesn't pat you on the back. Truth doesn't wipe your tears. Truth just sits with you in the dark and makes you face what hurt you. But even with all that pain, I realized something important. I survived her leaving. I survived the years alone. I survived the fire. I survived the grief, and now I survived the truth. She built a life without me, but I still lived. I grew old. I kept walking. She erased me, but I remained. In her home, she held a new family. In mine, I held the memory of a life that could have been. And now both of us had to live with what came next, her with the lies, me with the truth that was the aftermath. Not loud, not violent, just quiet consequences settling in like dust on old furniture. And for the first time in decades, I finally felt like the chapter was closed. Not healed, not fixed, but closed. Now that the truth is out and the past can't chase me anymore, I sit in my small living room and think about everything that happened. The magazine still lies on my shelf. The same issue that shattered the life I thought I knew. Sometimes I glance at it, not because I miss her, but because it reminds me how far a heart can fall before it stops breaking. I look at her photo, smiling, alive, surrounded by a family that never heard my name, and I don't feel anger anymore. Anger is hot. Anger burns. My feelings have cooled into something much heavier, something that sits deep in the chest like a stone. It is the kind of sadness that doesn't scream or shake or break. It just settles. It just stays. I tell myself she didn't vanish from the world in 1985. She vanished from me. I spent years imagining her trapped, kidnapped, hurt, gone. But she was living, cooking dinners, celebrating birthdays, building a life that didn't include the man who searched for her through rain, through hospitals, through police stations, through empty nights that never ended. She was alive while I mourned a ghost. She was laughing while I sat alone in a quiet house waiting for footsteps that never returned. She was healing while I was breaking. And maybe that is the hardest truth of all. She didn't disappear to survive danger. She disappeared to escape me, our life, our memories, our fire, our pain. I think about the man she married. He called me confused, shaken, trying to pull answers from someone who owed him nothing. But he wasn't the villain, he just stepped into the life she handed him. She closed the door to her past and never warned him about the shadow she left behind. I don't blame him for loving her. I don't blame him for building a life she said was clean and safe. But I wonder if he looks at her differently now. If he wonders how a woman can bury one husband without a funeral and build a new marriage on top of old ashes, a life built on silence always cracks when the truth knocks. Sometimes at night, I imagine what could have happened if she had come back to look for me. If she had checked the hospitals. If she had asked the police. If she had simply waited one day longer. Our life could have been rebuilt. Our home could have been repaired. Our love could have survived. But she didn't come back. She didn't call. She didn't wait. So whatever possibilities existed died long before I found her picture in that magazine. People say time heals wounds, but some wounds don't heal. They just stop bleeding. The scar stays. The pain stays. You simply learn how to walk with it. That's what I do now. I walk with the truth instead of the lie. I walk with the knowledge that she chose another life, and I walk with the strength of having survived it. I don't need her to apologize. I don't need her to explain. I don't need her to cry. Those things won't give me back the years I lost. They won't rebuild the man I was before her disappearance. What I have now is small but real. Quiet mornings, slow steps, warm tea, and the peace that comes from knowing I finally reached the end of a road I walked for too long. I may have spent decades searching for her, but now I'm done searching. I'm done hoping. I'm done wondering. She turned the page and wrote a new story without me. I stayed trapped in the chapter she abandoned. But I've closed the book now. I sit by the window and watch the sun rise, and each morning reminds me that even broken men can find a way to keep moving. Even abandoned hearts can keep beating. I may have been forgotten by the woman I loved, but I wasn't destroyed. I lived long enough to learn the truth, to see the ghost turn human, to put the past exactly where it belongs, behind me. And now my final thought sits quiet but sharp. She didn't disappear into darkness. She disappeared into the life she wanted more than she wanted me. And I survived the truth she left behind.